What is going on, everyone? James Hancock here, and back to review episode 5 of Gangs of London, which airs this week on AMC Plus in the United States. Came out a couple months ago back in the UK, but this is an episode of television where I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It is the best viewing experience I've had on either the big or the small screen all year. I'm always on the hunt for jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring genre entertainment, in particular stories geared toward an adult sensibility. And this episode just floored me. It had stakes, it had genuine heroism, incredible acts of self-sacrifice, brilliant story construction, the best camera movements and filmmaking technique imaginable, but most important of all, it packed a devastating emotional punch that's tough to put into words, and in the end, whether you're talking about film or television, a heightened sense of emotional experience is what storytelling is all about. So if you're worried about spoilers, I'll offer a quick spoiler-free comment before diving into any details. In broad strokes, Gangs of London is this modern-day crime saga created by filmmaker Gareth Evans and Matt Flannery. Gareth Evans is best known for the brilliant action movies The Raid and The Raid 2, and while he only directed episodes 1 and 5 of this season, anytime there's a major action scene in any given episode, Gareth Evans takes over with his signature brand of action. A style which draws upon the best action ingredients in movie history, from Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch through the golden age of Hong Kong action, up to the present day in Indonesia, where god-level martial arts movies are being made, movies like The Night Comes for Us. But when it comes to pitching Gangs of London to the unconverted, imagine a corporate drama like Succession, where instead of pens and lawyers, everybody uses guns and martial arts. So if you can imagine that kind of hybrid form of entertainment, you're getting close to the flavor of Gangs of London. And when it comes to the violence, the show is completely and totally uncompromising. This is a savage, ruthless show, and it's absolutely not meant for viewers who are weak in the knees. This is high-octane, balls-in-your-face cinema, and I'm going to make it my mission to spread the word that the best action to be found in entertainment right now is on this show. At any rate, get caught up on the show if you haven't already, but everything I'm going to say moving forward is for people who've already seen the episode and are ready to savor the extraordinary experience offered by episode 5 of Gangs of London. So let's start with the structure. I love how this episode feels almost like a standalone story set apart from the chaos of the story set in London, allowing Gareth Evans to return to his home in Wales. And the episode plays out with its own continuity in a way that is absolutely delightful to behold because it's somewhat out of sequence, but eventually all the separate storylines collide in the most epic way imaginable. The episode also fills in the gaps on the mysterious ambush at the end of episode 4, leaving the viewer with this incredibly satisfied feeling, knowing that we're in very safe hands with this writing team. But in broad strokes, we have the Welsh traveler Darren hiding out in a cabin, which is basically a front for manufacturing ammunition. And this is all part of a plan by his father Kenny, played by the amazing Mark Lewis-Jones, to get his son out of the country by boat. And Kenny, as we saw, was wounded at the end of episode 2, and throughout the first half of this episode, he's trying desperately to get to his son to warn him that hired killers are coming for him. And what blew my mind was how emotionally invested I was in the story. Kenny's stumbling his way through the countryside with a bullet hole in his belly, and in one of the most disgusting scenes that I've ever witnessed, we see him pulling a worm right out of the hole, and then later we see him stapling himself together to slow the bleeding. I wanted to say, look dude, you might have a few more worms in there, maybe chill on the staples. But in spite of all the vomit I had to choke back during these moments, this is all but a prelude, a mere warm-up, with this slow burn leading up to the explosive climax. A climax that has the staging, complexity, and drama of a medieval siege, with all sorts of elaborate defenses and ladders, etc., but it has the added bonus of machine guns and hand grenades. And for my money, the build-up to this siege was an absolute masterclass in building suspense and tension as these Danish assassins, with enough weapons to take over a small country, fan out in front of this house, all while Kenny's sprinting toward the household, trying to warn everyone of the slaughter that's about to take place. And one of the major accomplishments of this episode is how quickly we get emotionally invested in characters that are doomed to die in heroic fashion, facing overwhelmingly superior numbers and firepower in this epic battle to come. We have Evie, played by Caroline Lee Johnson, who's in charge of this ammunition factory, one that initially appears to be quite vulnerable, but as we soon learn, it's fully stocked with all these hidden weapon compartments and bulletproof shutters, you name it. And we also have Mal, played by Richard Harrington, who, like the legendary heroes of Hong Kong action flicks like The Killer, he appears to be utterly impervious to gunfire, at least up until the point until his death can achieve the maximum dramatic impact. And he might now officially be the record holder in movie and television history for withstanding the greatest number of bullet wounds while still fighting to the bitter end. And then we also have all these incredible unnamed characters, many of whom simply get chewed up like hamburger meat thrown into a wood chipper, but they get these epic hero beats, like when the character played by actor Sam Mack faces certain death in an effort to lower the bulletproof shutters over all the various windows. And the battle itself is something special. It's this strange mix of horrific brutality, straight out of the most gruesome horror movie you've ever seen, combined with this really slick, expert camera choreography Some of the best that I've ever seen in any action movie or show. This is one of those scenes where you quickly run out of expletives, just screaming, holy shit, like what the fuck, goddamn, for about like 20 straight minutes. And the creativity on display almost makes you forget the next level brutality. This is a scene where we see precisely what happens when characters fire machine guns at each other at point blank range. Characters are quite literally cut to ribbons before being set on fire or blown up with hand grenades or any other form of violent death you can think of. From a pure craftsmanship standpoint, my favorite moment has to be this incredible scene on the roof of the house where the camera whips around following this character who's outrunning gunfire, only to have both the camera as well as the character it's following drop down through these holes at precisely the same moment. And in this interview I read with Gareth Evans, he describes how the illusion of this lengthy shot was created by sleight of hand, combining two different shots together, but when you see it in real time, it just makes your eyes pop right out of your head. It's one of those moments where it's impossible to deny the feeling that you are quite literally watching pop culture, entertainment history in the making, a scene that action directors will point to for decades to come as a key moment in the history of the genre that forces everyone in this field to up their game. And as any action fan knows, at times the action genre can be a little stale unless you have directors who are willing to or able to show you things that you've never seen before. And there's this one moment where I was just gobsmacked by both the beauty and the horrific nature of a particular shot, where we see an explosion in slow motion and one person trying to jump out of the way, and we can see the flames quite literally inch by inch consuming the person's body. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. Put simply, this episode takes the genre to heights previously unseen, even in the rest of Gareth Evans' work. Now, ordinarily, 20 minutes of straight action might run the risk of making the audience just feel numb or limp or exhausted. But like a master composer, Gareth Evans knows precisely how to slow things down, how to decrescendo and crescendo back up, ramping things up, giving the entire sequence this rhythm that makes everything feel really fresh and unpredictable from start to finish, especially once this Danish militia starts suffering heavy losses, much to their shock and dismay. But what also kept me engaged was this incredible tension between father and son, as Kenny's doing everything in his power trying to get Darren onto this boat, including shielding his son with his own body. But they're having their own struggle, where Darren, who's suffering from all this guilt, isn't quite sure he deserves to take this trip or deserves to be saved. And in the end, they're executed together, drawing to a close a sequence that I can only describe as some of the most brutal, violent mayhem I have ever seen on the screen. It is the best action scene of the year. It is by far one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen, and every single stuntman, coordinator, etc., assistant director, and so on and so forth involved in this episode's construction deserves to take a very long and lengthy bow. Now, this show's been out since the spring over in Europe, and I've already been warned by a lot of other people who love this show that after episode 5, the show slows down quite a bit, but that's totally fine because there's no possible way a show could reach these heights and find a way to sustain it or build upon it leading up to the conclusion of the show. I'm still totally on board and I'm totally on the hook up until the bitter end. But as far as I'm concerned, this show, it's already accomplished its mission, namely absolutely blowing my mind. And in a year where the movie business is struggling to reinvent itself and struggling to hang on to its business model, its cultural relevance, here we have a show from overseas that makes Hollywood feel painfully behind the times when it comes to creating exciting action. And while I applaud AMC Plus for being willing to acquire the show, it's a shame that this show is getting so little distribution in the United States. I found the best way to get access to it is just to get the AMC Plus app within Amazon Prime Video, and then you can go ahead and stream all the episodes up until now. But if you haven't watched this show, definitely do so. In episodes 1, 3, and 5, the show features some of the most insane action that I've ever seen in my life, and this is coming from somebody who considers themselves to be a bit of an action junkie from the dawn of the movie industry up to the present day, and also the only sport that I follow is mixed martial arts. I watch UFC pretty much every weekend. I'm a combat sports and action movie junkie, and I'm telling you right now, Gangs of London is doing something very special, and I'll be banging the drum for this show for a very long time. But I think that's all I have to say about the show for now. So please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Please consider sharing the video if you feel so inclined, or hit the notification bell. And if you want to talk more about action, you can find me on Twitter at Cobrax. But I can't thank you enough for watching the video. Really appreciate it. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.